Hello, welcome to the Claw studio here at the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden, for this insight which is supported by Rolex. I'm Ian Skelly, and tonight we're going to be exploring Puccini's last opera, Turandot, his last opera that was incomplete when he died very suddenly in 1924. This production sees a run that starts on the 10th of March here at Covent Garden. The opera is an interesting departure for Puccini. Puccini, the composer who made Verismo opera his own, really, Verismo being the depiction of gritty real life in rural Italy. But in this opera, we're in a legendary setting, the ice-cold court of the Princess Turandot, who, well, frankly, doesn't want to get married. And so makes sure that all of her suitors have to answer three very difficult riddles. And if they get them wrong, well, she deals with them very swiftly and without compassion. And then along comes a suitor who gets all of the answers right. He's madly in love with her, of course. But then he also has the power, and he has a secret, which he decides to divulge, risking his own life in order to prove that love conquers all. Andrei Serban's classic staging draws on Chinese as well as Italian theatrical traditions, and it's a gorgeous pageant of rich colour, dance and drama. And of course, Puccini's score is full of great moments, not least the marvellous aria Nessun Dorma, No One Sleeps. Performances will be conducted here at Covent Garden by Antonio Pappano and Paul Wynne Griffiths. We have Anna Perozzi and Catherine Foster in the title role, and Young Hun Lee and Russell Thomas singing the role of the mysterious suitor, whose name is, dare I whisper it, Calaf. So stay with us this evening. We're going to hear and meet some of the performers in this production, and also, to begin with, some of the people who have been behind the scenes making this production happen. We'll also have plenty of music from the show. I'm very pleased to say that Tony Pappano will be here directing us through the score, and we'll be hearing some performances from Ping, Pang and Pong. So let us begin by talking about this production with the revival director of this show and also the choreographer. Would you please welcome Jack Furness and Kate Flatt.
Hello.
Great to see you. You've been in rehearsal all day, I presume, have you?
Yes.
We have.
Yes. Where are you in the process? Are you still blocking or what?
Well, we sort of finished today.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, not finished, but we're going to do a run tomorrow in the rehearsal room with chorus, actors, dancers, principals, children.
Everybody.
And, yeah, we'll see how it goes, and then we've got a couple more days in the studio to sort of polish it up and refine it before we go to the stage.
And when you have two people taking on the same role, are they both in the rehearsal room at the same time, or do you have to
sometimes yeah, well, it depends on the personalities. No. Sometimes that does happen actually, but in this instance we're working with one cast at the moment, and then the other cast will be rehearsed another time, but the casts do actually mix, so there'll be a recycling of the first cast into the second cast rehearsals.
Yes. Now, they say that if you want to know what the Druids thought, you should ask the bees. But if you want to know what Andrei Serban thought, you should ask Kate, because you were there at the start of this.
Yes,
when did it go up first time?
It was 1984, and it opened at the Los Angeles Olympic Arts Festival in the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in Los Angeles. That was fun. Yes, and the process of arriving there, I think we were like the third team that had been asked to develop an idea for it. And so it actually happened very, very late. So the model box and the first meetings were actually in Cardiff, where Andrei and I were working on another performance of Merry Widow, actually rather different. And Sally would come with Sally Jacobs with the design in the model box for meetings which we had all together. So I was gleaning this information very early on about the scale of what was going on. And I listened to what was going on for a bit, and I said, I think I need to start a week early if you're going to have dancers, 10 dancers. Then I went away and I did lots of research into movement and listened to their concept, and then started a week earlier than everywhere else. And made sequences of material as a kind of offering of a toolkit for Andrei to work from. And Sally had developed also this fabulous concept in the structure of the design with the chorus in the balconies and the story unfolding on the floor below and played out. So this mythical story could be played this way. And just to say that the languages, I personally have studied Tai Chi, and I wanted to include this very slow moving element of the Tai Chi, which actually was really connected to Sally's reference to something coming from ancient China. And the Tai Chi is about 6,000 years old. That's pretty ancient. Mm. And the other language that's there, of course, is the commedia dell'arte, which Andrei was fascinated by, absolutely fascinated by. And Ping, Pang and Pong in the original Carlo Gozzi play have the names of the commedia dell'arte characters.
Let's come back to the detail in just a moment. But Jack, I just want to establish your credentials too, because you know this production quite well too, don't you? You don't go quite so far back.
No, I assisted on it before, yeah. And yeah, this time I'm in the hot seat, yeah. Which is great. And I remember assisting on it and seeing the Tai Chi influenced choreography for the first time at the end of Act 2 and just thinking, wow, this is something so epic about it in the sense of the way that the movement controls your perception of the flow of time is just extraordinary, and the scope of the whole thing, you know, as I said, there's quite a few people on stage.
Yes, well, we'll get to that as well. But the actual vision then, are you suggesting that it's we're not watching real action, we are watching a story unfold that others are watching? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it is about a story unfolding. And at certain moments, for example, that every character that I deal with, basically, dancers particularly, and Ping and Pong are masked. So Ping and Pong have these half masks, which are brilliant, designed by Sally Jacobs to have spaces in them so that they can feel the resonance of the sound, which is brilliant. Because everybody went, oh, singers in masks, you can't do that. Of course you can. And Turandot herself wears one, and the dancers I work with have a beautiful white Eastern Asian style of mask. I would say the other thing that goes with that mask work is not, it's global theatre, world theatre. You find mask work in different places everywhere. And it is definitely that a mask says, this isn't somebody real.
I see.
That's the way that the story gets told. And of course, the chorus are all masked, in red masks. So you've got a double chorus, a chorus watching and investing in the material. They're not passive at all, are they?
No.
And they're there a lot, aren't they? The chorus is on, I reckon, probably about half of the production.
Yeah, I mean, but it creates, we've been doing quite a lot of chorus work this week. We worked on the trial scene, and today we were looking at Act 3 with the chorus. And when you have that many people looking and just watching and giving that intensity of focus to the action that is happening, something really magical happens in the room, and hopefully will in the auditorium as well. That it, you know, the atmosphere becomes completely electric. And on the sort of theatre within a theatre thing, one thing that I've been finding fascinating in rehearsals as we've been working through is obviously that there are various sort of artificial theatrical gestures like masks or other things as well. We have these carts that come in and out and things fly in very obviously and stuff like that. The sort of mechanics of the theatre is very much to the fore. And that creates a sense of a very ceremony-based world, a world in which everything is preordained and everything happens according to the way that, you know, it has been planned. And then discovering the moments when that quite austere logic can break and flex and allow more human warmth into it is really, I think, one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot.
And health and safety, I think, comes into it too, because you have people hanging off these cards as they're wobbling towards the pit.
Yes, yes. Well, Sally Jacobs is a very, very human designer. She designed the cart in such a way, and she said she would come down and make sure that everybody had a foothold and had something to hold on to. So it looks precarious, but they are... I don't want any of them to get damaged.
And we rehearse that so much, you know, to make sure that the guys who are pulling the cart know exactly where they're going and what happens.
And you obviously have to work very closely together as director and choreographer, because there is so much dance involved in this. Is that something you're quite used to doing?
Yeah, I think that's
now.
Not so much with each other before now, but
well, and also the dance is rehearsed preliminary in a separate room, and then we start to integrate and bring things together and bring the elements together in different ways, and then you're searching all the time for clarity and for there to be sort of traffic understanding between singers and dancers, which there are literally something, so I think we need a traffic rehearsal.
Yeah.
You know, so there's those which enable everyone to feel secure and safe in what they're doing.
It's been amazing for me working with Kate, you know, to have that chance to learn from Kate's amazing eye. And I feel like we've been collaborating very closely on Ping Pang and Pong particularly, but on all of it really. And we've been kind of going on a little journey of rediscovery together to try to really find the spirit of the original production and to, you know, I think a revival, it should be alive. Yeah. And so we've been really trying to find the original reasons why everything happened the way it did and to animate it. And
of course, you're coming at it from a theatrical point of view, directing a revival. In ballet, you come to revivals or you use materials that don't tend to be used in theatrical productions, because you use this scheme, this system, the Benesch notation, which of course is very common in ballet, but perhaps could you just explain how it works and what you did?
Benesch movement notation was invented in the 1950s. I'm not a choreologist, I'm a choreographer. A choreologist can write down dance, genius people. I have a choreologist who reads the notation from the score that was created by Anne Whitley in 1984 with all the accompanying notes. It's a work of art, I have to say. Detail in the 5-line stave of the material. It's really, really detailed and especially good with recording how the music and the dance work together. So for the actual choreography, the dance choreography, that's taught by the choreologist, and then I come in and go, I think the quality just needs to be more like this. And then we brought in, we had somebody come and teach a Thai class, so that the quality of the movement, the inherent qualities come back. Because that's what I was searching for when we first made it. Not to make something that has got Chinese arms and legs, as can happen in ballet. It's not that. It was very, very much about finding a way of moving that was integral to the language of the piece, and that was what was recorded. And so we revive it from the Benesch notation, which saves probably about 2 weeks' salary for the dancers, because it's very fast to learn it all. And then you can work into that material. And there are quite a few adaptations responding to Jack's input, you know, to revisit certain areas has been really joyful this time. And not major changes, but things that make a difference to the feeling of the piece.
And Puccini's music, what I love about this opera is that right the way through it, in the music, there is this underlying sense of threat. Oh, yeah. And I just wonder, how do you translate that on stage in the way that you bring the thing to life? Is there a sense of threat in the actual look of the thing? Yeah, there is. I mean, a lot of that is again, as the dancers bring that, and the actors as well, like the figure of the executioner. It has this entire body painted in green paint with quite a kind of scary mask on and a huge sword, and he kind of looms out of the darkness. And the dancers also, I'd say there's a ritualized violence about the production. So it's not like gory or particularly visceral.
Yeah, but there's a kind of intense, slow, ritualized violence about a lot of the stuff that happens. And that's not just in moments that are violent, like, for example, the torture of Liu in Act 3, which again is done in a ritual stylized way. But also in other moments as well, there's a sense of, in Act 1, growing forces gradually tightening the noose around Calaf, and the way the whole thing kind of moves in these circles. It's sort of the intensity of it builds and builds and builds, and so I think, yeah.
It's a slightly strange story at the end, though, isn't it? I mean, what do you make of the story, Kate?
What I think.
I mean, she breaks, doesn't she?
Yes.
Does she love him at the start? I've never.
No, she doesn't love him at the start. Well, from what the discussions I had with Jack, and that what Andrei suggested was this woman was terrified, and her fear turns into an overwhelming power, where she's ruling from this point of view of making these princes turn up and answer these 3 riddles, and if they don't get them right, you'll see that gesture many times, they get their heads chopped off. So there's a reign of terror, and she's an ice maiden, and of course she meets Calaf, and something's shifted. But the extraordinary part of the story, I think, and maybe you should talk about this a bit more, is when Liu, the servant girl, or former slave as she's called in this, she commits suicide, rather than give up the name of the unknown prince to everybody. So she commits an incredible act of sacrifice, and Turandot is shocked by that. And then everything starts to melt and change in the final duet, which Jack did an amazing job.
Is that the pivotal point, would you say?
Yeah. I think like all great drama, there are several steps along the way that happen to get to the denouement. So she says in Act 3 that when she first saw Calaf, and you see this moment in the production, she could see that he had the eyes of a hero, and she knew she would either conquer or be conquered. And so she's initially incredibly drawn to and terrified by him. But yeah, it is the death of Liu that really is the thing which finally breaks the ice. I mean, what that says to me, and I think I was watching Andrei giving an interview on the BBC in 1987, talking about the way that Turandot has never been able to trust anyone, and that actually what Calaf brings is trust and openness and vulnerability. And so I think a lot of the stuff that I've been doing in the rehearsal room is about exploring that. And the figure of Liu is this kind of ultimate representation of surrender. She's willing, as Kate says, to give up everything for another person. And that hugely moving and hugely significant surrender or sacrifice allows Turandot to kind of also then make a smaller smaller step of surrender. Yeah. Ping Pong and Pang call it the La Notte de la Resa, which is the night of surrender, is the thing that they look forward to the most when this icy law will be broken. So yeah, it finds its way into all of the interactions. I think that idea.
This production has had many outings. We were trying to add up earlier this afternoon. Over 100 times, I think it's been performed. Why would you say this production has lasted so long, and what's its secret?
Well, I think one is it's a phenomenal score, but I think, and it was actually working with Papano the other day, I really realised how much he gets into the theatre of the music, and how both serve each other, the theatre activity and the music serve each other in such an incredible way. That's one thing. And the other thing is that you have this playful, dark humour of Ping Pang and Pong, and they run the show completely. I mean, literally, they start the opera and they end it, the last thing and the first thing you see. And they play with this incredible, vivid mask work from the Commedia dell'arte. So there's that. And then there's incredibly beautiful, slow-moving action. There's always something moving in it. There's very few moments of stillness, and if they are, they're totally intentional. That is pure Andrei Serban, and Sally's designs serve it very, very wonderfully as well. Mm.
Well, we look forward to seeing this production. You've really sold it to us. Thank you both. After a long day in rehearsals, good luck with the run tomorrow.
Thank you.
And indeed, when you go live on the 10th of March. Thank you both for
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, Turandot, as I say, has been performed all over the world. This production has been performed all over the world as well, and it has involved some of opera's biggest names. We're going to meet the names that are taking part in this production at Covent Garden next. We have two members of the cast with us this evening, Anna Perozzi, and would you also welcome Masabani Cecilia Ranguanasha, and also translator Selima Frianu. Sit down. Come and sit down. Very nice to see you all.
Thank you.
Just to explain, we are speaking to Turandot and we're speaking to Liu.
Yes.
The two great heroines in this opera. May I begin with you? Who is this woman? Tell me about her.
First of all, I'm sorry for my bad English. I speak in Italian and Selima helped me for translation, sorry. Turandot è una donna che ha sofferto nel vedere la sua amica Lao Ling morire per mano di uomini.
Turandot is a woman who suffered in seeing her friend Lao Ling died at the hand of men.
E quindi lei ha deciso che da quel momento non avrebbe più voluto neanche vedere un uomo.
And so she decided that from that moment on, she never wanted to even see another man.
Figuriamoci sposarne uno.
Imagine marry one.
E quindi lei ha messo uno scudo davanti a sé, non fisico, ma uno scudo emotivo, diciamo.
And so she put on an emotional shield to protect herself in front of her.
E quindi, siccome lei è una bellissima principessa, tutti gli uomini che si presentano a lei li accetta, non li vuole neanche vedere, infatti ha una maschera. Però gli propone 3 enigmi molto difficili che mai nessuno ha indovinato. E quindi, quando perdono, siccome non risolvono, gli taglia la testa.
And so because she's a beautiful princess, all the men that present themselves to her, she doesn't even want to see them, so she wears a mask. She presents them with 3 enigmas, and when they fail, she cuts their head off. Yeah.
Ma tornando alla domanda sua, chi è Turandot? Per me comunque è una donna che vuole l'amore, desidera l'amore, è una donna e quindi è solo uno scudo protettivo, ma lei in fondo vuole innamorarsi.
But going back to the original question, she is a woman who is looking for love. So she puts on an emotional shield, but she does want love.
We've just heard one suggestion that she's also very frightened. Would you agree with that?
Abbiamo sentito anche un suggerimento che probabilmente ha molta paura anche lei.
Turandot ha paura? Sì, ha molta paura.
Yeah, she's very scared.
Yes.
E si affeziona a Liu dopo un po', che la vede così innamorata di Calaf. Si affeziona fino a quando lei si ammazza. Turandot soffre perché rivede un po' la scena di Lao Ling.
And when she sees Liu, she gradually gets close to Liu, and she suffers when she sees Liu so much in love with Calaf, and she almost relives the story of her first friend that she lost.
Well, Masabani, that's your role.
Yes.
It's a big role, this, and it's an intense one. Tell me, from your perspective, how you see this character, because she's tremendously tragic, I think.
Yes, I see her as she's very innocent and also very loyal. So when she has decided that she's going to be on your side, she will be on your side no matter what. Hence, she doesn't never let go of Timur, which she's always leading him.
He's the father of Khalaf.
He is the father of Khalaf, and I mean, another reason why she's doing this is because one day she thinks, one day Khalaf smiled at her. So in her mind, she thought Khalaf is in love with her. So she's very much in love with Khalaf.
But he's not in love with her.
He's not in love. I think he was, I think he was just smiling. He was having a good day. but then Liu, in her mind, she thought, oh my gosh, Khalaf is so in love with me. So she went with that until the end where she kills herself. Yeah.
And that is, of course, very shocking, but
Yeah.
none more so than for Khalaf. I mean, does he have any sense of your feelings, as it were, do you feel?
I think a lot of people in the opera, they misunderstand me because I never say it out there that I am in love with you. So I put it in a way that they do not know, but I think Khalaf knows. By the end, of course, it's evident that I was in love with him, but Khalaf sees me as a young girl who is taking care of his father, so I'm like a servant to him. So he doesn't see me in that way of love.
And it's quite a moment when she decides to kill herself, because she won't reveal his name. That's the point, isn't it?
Yes, so she makes this decision that she knows the name. So firstly, she protects Timur, which is Khalaf's father, because she could have said Timur knows the name and he was the first suspect. So she protected Timur and also thought about giving her life, because she knew if she says Khalaf's name, Turandot will kill, Khalaf will be killed.
Yes, that's the big risk he takes, I suppose, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Anna, the closing part of the opera, where you melt, your heart warms to this man. I mean, how big a transition is that for you when you're to play as the actress?
Capito?
Quando è la transizione?
Sì, quanto è grande questo momento di transizione per il tuo personaggio, quando finalmente ti sciogli in quest'amore.
Non c'è un punto ben preciso dove lei cambia, è tutto durante l'opera e soprattutto dopo la morte di Liu, e che lei cambia, già solo da uno sguardo di Khalaf lei inizia a cambiare, e poi ci sarà il bacio, e poi quello che lei sente per lei è strano, scusa.
Yeah. It's gradual, it happens throughout the opera, and then little by little, as the first glance from Khalaf, and then there is the kiss, and her feelings gradually change into what they are at the end.
Quindi lei anche non capisce che cosa gli sta succedendo, e questo è il cambiamento.
Yeah, so she's the first not to understand what's happening to her, and this is the change that she goes through.
And tell us a little bit about the music. I mean, Puccini, as I said at the beginning, he's the great Verismo operatic composer, but here he is writing a very formal story. Is that reflected in the music too, would you say?
Capito?
Se si riflette la storia nella musica?
Sì.
I think so, ma ci sono molte... Scusa, sorry. Ci sono molti momenti, ma Puccini scrive tutto con la musica, sia i momenti dolci che quelli più forti di Verismo.
So, Puccini writes everything with music, both the Verismo moments and also the very sweet moments.
E per la parte di Turandot ha scritto veramente, è stato un po' cattivo, diciamo.
And for the Turandot part, he was a little bit bad, he was a bit evil.
In what way?
In che modo?
Perché la scrittura di Turandot è molto difficile, non è naturale e ci vuole veramente una tecnica di ferro.
Yeah, because the music of Turandot is not a natural one. And so you really need a very strong technique, an iron technique.
And what about the very end? Because he didn't write that, did he? So how does it differ from the rest of the opera?
Io sento la differenza nel finale. In
I
questo
feel
caso,
the difference in the finale.
Say again?
I feel the difference
You
in
do,
the finale.
il finale è di Alfano, quindi la scrittura è un po' diversa, è già più contemporanea, è già più evolutiva, non so come si dice.
Yeah, in the Alfano finale, we see the difference. It's already more contemporary. There is an evolution in it. You can really feel it.
E anche armonicamente è più difficile studiarla.
And harmonically is more difficult to study it.
Perché si sa che Puccini c'è la melodia che aiuta.
Yeah, because in Puccini there is melody and that always helps.
Yes. And does it work?
E funziona?
Per forza.
Absolutely.
And you should say that. Masabani, we've heard quite a lot about the movement in this production. I mean, how have you coped with that? Do you practice Tai Chi?
We are actually, I mean, the opera, we are now making it as organic as possible. So we will not be seeing a lot of Tai Chi. Of course, from Ping Pong Pang, you know, you'll be entertained. It's really fantastic what they do. But yes, I have my moment, which you can watch it. Yeah.
Just let me dig into that a little bit more. What's
Yeah.
the moment?
I mean, this is the moment when she dies. So she has this, I mean, the movement is very beautiful. She has this big sword that she takes and kills herself in slow motion. So she goes down very slow, drop it, and then die. And the other nice thing is that she get picked up high and then on the car. So that's very nice.
This is a very big production, isn't it? There are a lot
Yeah.
of people on stage. It's a real spectacular. Does that cause you challenges? You know, we were talking earlier about you know, traffic systems. I mean, is it a complicated piece to do this for you?
Not very complicated. I mean, the people, they bring this energy, which I think, you know, it's a lot of sound coming from people and a lot of emotion coming from people, which, you know, it's serious business, which I think it's not very complicated to move around. Of course, we need to know where we are. But for Timur and Liu, it's quite straightforward because she's a slave. So she doesn't have movements that much. So she's very obedient. So this is how she moves.
And just as we come to close, what would you want people to take away from this production? What's the vision that you want people to hold in their minds at the end? Because it seems to me that it's even at the very end, there's such tragedy about this story. It's not just a happy ending, is it?
Cosa ti piace pensare che le persone si portano via quando hanno visto la recita? Perché non è soltanto uno show che è contento, non è per niente una cosa felice il finale, quindi cosa speri che si portino?
Però se vogliamo dire che il finale non è la morte di Liu, ma il finale è l'amore che sboccia tra Turandot e Calaf, il pubblico va via comunque felice.
But if we want to say that the finale is not the death of Liu, but rather the beginning of the love between Turandot and Calaf, then the audience can live happy.
Yes.
In that way.
Sicuramente dopo il secondo atto la morte di Liu susciterà molta emozione, lo fa anche a me, io sempre mi scende una lacrima.
Certainly, after the second act, after the death of Liu, this will bring out enormous emotion in the audience.
Durante il terzo atto.
During the third act.
Yeah.
Even I always shed a tear when this happens. It's incredibly moving.
Yes, yes. What about you, Mazarani? How would you characterize the end of this show?
Yeah, the end of the show, I'm already dead. But, I mean, I really like it because we hear motive from Nessun Dorma at the end, and that, I mean, you hear the chorus and everyone, and as the crowd is moving, it's very emotional, like Anna just said. It's very emotional, and I think, yes, we do have good news at the end that Turandot and Calaf are in love, but don't forget to cry for Liu.
We shan't. Masabani and Anna, thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening. Well, let's turn to the music in this wonderful opera, and who better to guide us through it than one of the conductors in the run, but also the artistic director here at Covent Garden, Sir Antonio Papano. He's here with our chief repetiteur, Michael Sikic. Would you please welcome them both? Over to you, Tony.
Good evening. It's lovely to be with you and to talk about this opera, which is, for Puccini, quite unusual. Like Wagner before him, this piece, he set out to write a grand opera, like Wagner did in The Twilight of the Gods, the Götterdämmerung. Yeah? And so what he does, first of all, he makes it into a choral opera. Now this is extraordinary for Puccini because his operas, we know they have a little bit of chorus. We know at the end of Act 1, this spectacular Te Deum in Tosca. We know the humming chorus in Madame Butterfly. Okay, a little bit more in Manon Lescaut in Act 3 and little things in Act 1. In Act 2. But this is really, really a chorus-based piece. And therefore it gives the bones, it covers the bones of this piece with greater flesh, with a greater amount of flesh, decibels. This is quite a loud opera, by the way. And I'll tell you why, because the instrumentation is quite extraordinary. It's 3 flutes, the third flute doubling on the piccolo. The piccolo will play a very, very important and unexpected role in the opera. 2 oboes, 1 English horn, 2 clarinets, a bass clarinet, 2 bassoons, 1 contrabassoon. That's normal for a big orchestra. But then on stage he has 2 alto saxophones who are doubling the melody, one of the famous Chinese tunes, Mo Li Hua, that you'll hear it in a minute. 4 French horns, 3 trumpets, 3 tenor trombones, 1 contrabass trombone, 6 on-stage trumpets, 3 on-stage trombones, 1 on-stage bass trombone, a percussion section with timpani, cymbals, gong, 1 triangle, 1 snare drum, 1 bass drum, 1 tam-tam, 1 glockenspiel, 1 xylophone, 1 bass xylophone, tubular bells, and very importantly, specially built for Puccini, the tuned Chinese gongs, of which there are several. 1 on-stage woodblock, 1 on-stage large gong, 1 celesta, 1 pipe organ, believe it or not, pipe organ in ancient China, okay? 2 harps, and of course, the glorious strings. So, yeah, big is the operative word. It's a very interesting time, this in the 1920s, because you have Stravinsky, the Rite of Spring premiere happened a few years before. You have Bartók making his experiments, finding his music, going in a different direction even than Stravinsky, all going in a different direction from Schoenberg and Berg and Webern. And you have Debussy all again going in another direction. It was an incredibly fertile moment in the history of music, as it was in the history of art. So what it must have been to be around at that time. Just incredible. I haven't mentioned Richard Strauss. Very important because Puccini went to see Salome, of course, was fascinated by it. And the reason I bring all this up is because somehow, when you listen to Turandot, you will hear echoes of all these composers in this piece. You will hear touches of orchestration. You'll hear the savagery of the Rite of Spring of Stravinsky. You'll hear the lurid, decadent qualities of Strauss's Salome. You'll hear the rhythm, that earthy rhythm of both Stravinsky and Bartók. You will hear very unusual harmonies. You hear him use bitonality, so imposing chords one on top of another that in, shall we say, in normal diatonic music would be unheard of. And this element comes right at the beginning of the opera. The piece at the beginning is in the key of F sharp minor, but look how he introduces with the first opening salvo. He introduces these two bars before the chord of F sharp minor. Play them extra slowly so we can hear them. Yeah. Now, those notes are in the F sharp minor scale. There's no funny business. He's not distorting anything. But the fact that he points out the tritone, so dum dum, there, da da. This famous Diabolus in Musica that's been much written about, much spoken about, but it creates tension, it creates menace, and it creates atmosphere, and which is, I mean, this is the day that the young prince of Persia is going to be beheaded because he has failed to answer correctly the three riddles posed to him by Turandot, who has, in solidarity with a long-lost ancestor, Lo Ling, in revenge for a man raping this poor young Princess Lo Ling, she says, I will marry no man unless he answers these three riddles. And of course, there are many dead suitors. And in fact, we have the ghosts of them appear. It's lurid, as I said before. But if I go on, listen to, that's the first gesture, bum, 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 bum. Then there's the double speed of that, which is, so you hear this dum, dum, dum. So you have dum, dum, dum. Then dum, 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 dum. So by doing that, he's, again, creating tension. All it is doubling the tempo. So it's a device, but it brings in drama. It's what happens afterwards that I want to call your attention to. So start from the beginning. 1, 2. Here. Now, listen. I could go on all night. And it does. It goes on a long time before anybody sings. Now, what is that chord? First of all, in the trombones, you hear this. Play the D minor. But play it with two hands so you can play it. And play it with the lots of bass. So. Now, above that, so D minor, and above that is a C sharp major chord. So, and together, you could get this squashed sound. because of this. Play the C sharp and a D together, just the D. Hear how terrible that is, right? But it grabs your attention, doesn't it? And because he repeats it so often, these chords introduce the mandarin, and the mandarin is going to declaim what the law is concerning the three riddles and the law set down by Turandot. And he's talking to the crowd. There's great unrest in the crowd because they're there for an execution. And you can imagine, you know, tons of people. And so to set that up, and the bloodthirstiness, very, very important element in this first act, the bloodthirstiness of the public, is this. He takes that initial theme, dum, 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 and I showed you how he doubles the time. Now he'll take that and he'll do this. So, one. Great. Terrific. So he's taken that little cell that you heard before, dum, 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 and he runs with it now. Okay? And we have dum, 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 dim, dum, 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 dum. They're all overlapping, one on top of another. Again, a musical device, but it's used very, very cleverly. And if you play slowly, Michael, he still is using the bitonality, the two chords, two harmonies at once. And the music bites. It really does bite. Then we have a phrase which, again, as I said, the wave, the turmoil of the crowd, but it's in a true F sharp minor. The thing is, to create bigness and to create space and to create this epic quality, he uses the bass, and I'm going to show you another example after this, which is just absolutely incredible. But he uses the bass as a pedal point. In other words, the bass doesn't move, but the melody moves on top of it. So can you play this? Hear the bass? The bass is the same. Yeah, it kind of gives it an incredible weight and as I said, a bigness. Okay. That music is also associated with the Prince Kalaf, who has come back after being in exile. He was a prince of the Tartary people, and his father Timur was deposed, and he's left only, his father's blind, left only with this slave girl, Liu, who I'm sure you heard about in the talk. And this music is also used to show the prince finding his father, this time going up into G minor, and it's somehow in a slightly gentler vein. One. Father, my father, oh padre, si ti ritrovo. Hear the bass still? There it moved. Yeah, and very, very beautiful and very, very emotional music. So the opera starts full on, as you can see, tremendous decibels, tremendous pathos, all kinds of dramatic tension, except nothing happens. And this is very important. And one of the problems of this piece in general is that it's not like Bohème, there's a story and she knocks at the door and the tenor opens and, you know, and they haven't paid the rent, and she's got the candle, but she blows it out, and then you're following the story. Are they going to fall in love? Of course they're going to fall in love. They're going to go to Café Momus and it's all going to be happy. And then in Act 3, she leaves him because, you know, all that story. In Tosca, the political machinations. You have the baron, the chief of police. You have the painter. You have the diva. There's, you know, all this stuff. You have even Napoleon. Madame Butterfly, you have Pinkerton, he goes away, she's left by herself. You have that story to follow. Here, it's not that. This is not an opera like that. And this is the main thing that I want to say to you. It's a piece about ritual. It's a piece not about story. The story is elementary, really. And I think, therefore, you can accept the preponderance of slow tempi in the score. There are a lot of fast ones. I'm not saying that there aren't, but there are a lot of slow ones. And I'm going to go through a few of these. Of course, this, when Puccini was a young man, he saw Aida, which changed his life, because he saw Verdi making an experiment, going far into a far-off land, therefore being forced to create a musical language that would give the perfume of the place, the perfume of the time of ancient Egypt in that case. And Verdi made finding tunes that had a melismatic quality. That kind of thing. The idea that Puccini would then take that and create a Madame Butterfly, create a Turandot, Japan, China, the Girl of the Golden West, in the Golden West, these far-off lands, because it allowed him to find for each piece a new musical language, a new environment for his characters. New harmonies, new devices, etc. And this is fantastic. It's a self-renewal each time, which I find absolutely brilliant. Now, of course, if we're dealing with Asian culture and the music, you will of course have the pentatonic scale. The pentatonic is a... What's that? But you have different versions of it here. Listen to this. This is Liu when she meets up with the prince and she says, "I'm nothing, nulla sono." Go. And did you notice that the bass didn't change through any of that? There's the movement in the melody. Again, that pedal note that again creates, I don't know, a carpet of, a psychological carpet, I think, for us listeners to bring us somewhere else. I don't know what it is, but that's how it affects me, certainly. You have the parallel harmonies that were the rage in the 20s. Here, listen. Okay, every note harmonized in. Okay, that's a very, very simplistic example. But when you hear the chorus and you hear this rhythm, dum 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 dum, has that earthiness of one of those ballets. Fantastic. But we have an incredible invocation to the moon, which without a chorus I can't do it justice. But what I wanted to play for you was the funeral music for this young Prince of Persia. And this is quite extraordinary and one of my favorite bits, I must say. Where is that, Michael?
Figure 21.
Figure 21. Okay. Page 61. Okay. Before that, I just want to play this. I mentioned the tune before, Moli Huao. This is one of the famous tunes, which will be the music of Turandot. This is her theme. Listen. And you will hear that over and over again. It's introduced by children's voices with two saxophones playing the melody with them. So that you can imagine the blend of children's voices and these two saxophones off stage. It's just quite amazing as a color color being one of the great things in this score. It just, that turns into this. Great. Now that melody, do, 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 di, do, 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 sounds very Asian. And listen how Puccini has harmonized it. It's actually only 2 chords, listen. Just play it softly. Listen, da, da, and back. Little gilding of the lily there. So parallel harmony to accompany that. So he's using, again, devices that, that were becoming all the rage. I forgot to mention the composer Szymanowski, who was making a name for himself a little bit later in the 30s, but still just, but where color, perfume, decadence. Now, the funeral music I talked about, of the young boy. This is a piece of music where the bass note stays the same for the whole piece of music. But I'm not going to play the whole thing, but you'll get the idea. And it's a E flat minor, which will become very important in the opera, this key. Now it's E flat minor, but there's a D chord here. Then different color. Start again. Then did you hear that low in the piano? So the use of the gong, the tam-tam, and the Chinese gongs will be all over this. Now, the reason I played that for you is, did you notice the gait of it? It's a funeral march. That Puccini rarely, in slow tempi, writes martially. Mi chiamano ma il mio nome Lucia. A te la seta ricamo. It's all about the rhythm of the words, the text. There's a little bit of measured, but here it is. D'amore. Now listen. Non feci mai mal ad anima mia. There's very little of this push and pull in this piece when the chorus sings. And that's why I want to come back to what I was talking about before, is this ritualistic quality that so much of it displays. So much of it is just ba, da, da, and the majesty, and it gives the piece an epic quality because, coming back to the fact, to what I said before, it's not an opera, it's a fable. It must be something, that really captures the imagination rather than, oh, what's going to happen next? No, and I think, but in this way, it was one of Puccini's great experiments. I want to give you another place of bitonality, which is one of my favorite bits. These are the shadows or the ghosts of the dead princes who didn't answer the riddles. And you've got to listen to this chord. I love this chord. This is page 106, Michael.
106, yeah.
Now, in the left hand, there's an F7th chord. So play it separately, just normal. And in fact, but then, listen to the right hand. Now put that together. and the singers sing like this. Listen, keep going, Michael. And creating this fantastic, and you notice that he's going on, he could again carry on all night, because Puccini has found a groove that creates a trance-like state, very much like the funeral march, where that pedal just kind of keeps you locked in again to a groove. He's found a rhythmic groove. He's found an incredible chord to capture your imagination. And now what he rarely does is uses these chords in progressions, like it won't go da 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 da, like maybe Schoenberg would do, you know, and build his harmonies. I'm not going to get into that tonight, of course, luckily for you. But as color, as atmosphere, it's fantastically theatrical. It's just different kind of theater. Okay, now, add to all this, we have these three ministers, Ping, Pang, and Pong, and they're there to tell us, well, first of all, they're the Turandot's sort of guys, and they, but they're very worried for the state of the state. All this killing, these people dying, you know, and so when the prince comes along and says, I want to answer those riddles, they say, you're crazy. And they tell him to, fermo, che fai, t'arresta. Well, stop, what are you doing? Stop, who are you? What are you doing? What do you want? Va via, get away. This is crazy. You're mad to be here. Don't do this. You know, but that's not so interesting what they're saying. What's interesting is how Puccini has set it, and he's done it. He wanted to create out of these three characters a commedia dell'arte group of singers, meaning like you imagine Pullicella, you know, sort of in the Pagliacci comedy scene. You know, you have what's her name? Now it escapes me. My goodness. But yeah, anyway, you have those characters, or Arlecchino and Colombina. That's what I'm looking for. And those kind of characters, and they dance and they talk like this, and almost in a puppet way. Now look what I've played for you. I've played for you. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 dum 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 dum. I played the pentatonic. I've played the funeral march. I've played the tune, the Turandot's theme. But nobody will be ready for this. Let me introduce to you now our three ministers, Ping, Pang, and Pong. That's Joseph Jongmin An, Seamus Begg, and Alistair Elliott. Now, Joseph just sang in The Barber of Seville. He just came from the stage. I'm not joking. In the first scene. So okay, so the prince he's chomping at the bit. He says to his father, and his father is extremely negative about this whole section. Don't do this, don't do this. And the son says, vincere, padre, nella sua bellezza. I want, because of her beauty, I want to win. I want to conquer her. Vincere gloriosamente nella sua bellezza. You don't even have to know what it means. You can hear it. Glorioso nella sua bellezza. Okay? And they enter. So we're going to go from where his father says, do you want to end up in this situation? So vuoi finire così? From there? From the, no, from here. That one. Yeah? And one. Vuoi finire così, vincere gloriosamente la sua bellezza.
pazzi indigeni e più pazzi forestieri scappio il funeral per te s'appresa
Lasciatemi passar.
una principessa che cos'è? Una femmina con la corona in testa il manto con la celestiale nuda e carne cruda roba che non si mangia lascia le donne o prendi 100 spose che in fondo la più sublime Turandot del mondo ha una faccia e 2 braccia e 2 gambe sì belle imperiali sì belle sì ma sempre quelle con 100 voglio gioco avrai gambe di moco 200 braccia e 100 dolci petti 100 paletti 100 letti 100 letti pazzo va via va via pazzo va via va via pazzo va via via va via va via.
Good, terrific, guys. So let's let me just unpack that a little bit, and you're gonna hear it again. Okay? So the basic melody is da 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 dum, and the orchestra goes some da 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 dum. So it's almost like vaudeville, right? We get that kind of thing. Da 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 dum, da da dum, da da dum dum. Okay, so it's very simple. So it's kind of an Asian tune with little sort of Western answers, okay? Show business answer. But then you get when the prince says, let me pass, let me by. Listen to the harmonies here. Play that slowly. Again, the bitonality creeps in here. Play that slowly. That's right up Stravinsky Street, right? You can hear it. Okay, but it's there, and again, it just creates the color. Now you get, I think, what Puccini has been really brilliant about is capturing also the sentimental aspect of Asian music. Because, I mean, I've been to Japan many, many times, China just a couple of times, but when you hear their music, even their popular music, there's a real love for a sentimental tune. So la da di da dum dum da la da 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 dum dum da. But the words they're saying, if you don't escape, your funeral will be waiting for you. Da da di da dum dum da 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 da. Then they go boo. And anyway, listen to this. The text is fun here. Yeah, he says, she's a woman with a crown on her head, but if you take all her clothes off, she's just meat and bones, like any other woman, that you can't eat. Okay, and they go ha 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 ha, and he says, don't leave women alone, or either that. Or take 100 wives, but don't take this one. This one you can't have, okay? She's got this one, and anyway, Turandot, yeah, she's got a face, she's got arms, she's got legs. Yeah, they're imperial, they're important, but she's still, it's nothing special. She's got arms like everybody else, legs like everybody else. So guys, with that in mind, we're going to, now we've done it seriously, now we're going to, really make into comedies, really, so smile a lot, okay? Okay, we go from the same place.
Pazzo va via, qui si struzza, trinella, si spella, fucina e capito.
And that bit they're talking about, here they rip your tummy across. Here they take your skin apart, describing the violence of the court. and what can happen to him. And they use words like si sgozza, si spella, si strozza. They don't listen. So we're going to go from there. Qui he strozza si trivella. Okay, and through the r and the t and the tongue, and then you get all this percussion. Okay, one and.
Sega e si scude, sole si copre ciba, al tuo paese torna, cercherò lo sé. Ma qui no, pazzo, Maria, ma via.
Lasciatemi passare.
Puccini, ieri sono occupati. Qui basta i pazzi indigeni, vogliamo più pazzi forestieri.
The funeral.
Scappa io al funeral per te, sapresa.
Lasciatemi passare.
Per una principessa. Che cos'è? Una femmina con la corona in testa. Ma se la strani nuda è carne cruda. È roba che non si mangia. Lascia le donne, o prendi 100 spose, che in fondo la più sublime, Turandot del mondo, ha una faccia, 2 braccia e 2 gambe, sì, belle, imperiali, sì, sì, belle, sì, ma sempre quelle, con 100 a voglia sciocco, avrai gambe di poco, e 100 braccia, e 100 dolci pei. 100 parenti, 100 lei, 100 letti.
Andami pezzar.
Passo va via, passo va via, passo va via, via.
Yeah, very good, terrific. Yeah. Phew, you give me a workout there, guys. No faster, please. Act 1 as a structure is just absolutely incredible. It's airtight. Puccini finished Act 1 and Act 2, as you know, and most of Act 3. And Act 3, he had a problem because he was faced with a situation that he had a happy end, and he's not used to writing happy ends. That's true. I mean, but you can't really call the end of The Girl of the Golden West a happy end. What the two characters, Minnie and Ramirez, will face when they leave, you know, it can't be great, you know. So, and in this situation, a love duet. He's almost outdone himself with the death of the little slave girl, Liu, and the whole idea that Turandot has to be, how to best describe it? She has to almost be purified of this psychological weight that she's been carrying for all these years. The idea of this young princess Lo Ling, who she's defending and against men. That the idea of writing a duet where the female character has to somehow go through a psychological purgation is not an Italian idea. You will find this in many German opera, Ariadne of Strauss, certainly in Isolde will have these kind of where the need to explain. The love duet in the Act 2, the need to explain things before. I mean, usually Italians, 5 minutes it's over, but in the German duets, love duets, that needs time, and Puccini managed it very, very well in Madame Butterfly because he found an Italian way to incorporate some of the metaphysical qualities of like a Wagnerian love duet. So you have echoes of Tristan and Isolde in that duet. But in this was almost too big for him, and he delayed and he delayed and he delayed. And then he died of lung cancer, unfortunately, before he could finish it. So what we have, tonight I don't want to spend time on this final duet, which is a minefield, because it was given to a composer, Alfano to write, and he wrote an ending which we use today. His original ending was cut and rearranged by Toscanini, and that's what we play today usually. But the original ending is quite interesting because it gives Turandot much more time to find her reasons for melting, you know, before she gives in to him. You know, it's very, very beautiful. So, but let's go. I want to play you and have these guys sing to you the beginning of Act 2, because, and we'll finish with that. And I'll tell you, this scene starts the same. It's quite bustling. They're busy with their work now. You know, the riddles are going to have to be answered. There's a lot to do, but they're bemoaning also their lot. And they're saying, oh, why can't we be in the country? Just my little house in Xiang. Oh, and my little house in Q. Oh, and that little blue lake. And why can't I be there? And we get this. This is operatic suicide, which Puccini has done, because it stops the action completely. It's an oasis of music, nostalgia, and time with these guys, and Turandot hasn't sung yet, and that's all we're thinking. So it's very interesting that he took the time to again give us his own version of the Commedia dell'arte, but this time even more refined. Again, it starts very bustlingly. Again with these. Just play slowly the beginning of these chords, the dissonance. So if you play just the thumbs and the thumb, quite horrible, isn't it? But when you hear it orchestrated, and you hear the muted trumpets, really has a swing. Here we go. So so he's going to be preparing. He's going to be preparing what could be the wedding, if the guy gets the right answers, and he's going to be preparing the funeral, which is more likely, right? You know, and he talks about the old days. Oh, China, what it was in the old days. Oh, if we could have those days, you know. Okay, so you hear a lot of different musics, but in a kind of a vaudeville scene, yeah. And burial.
Io preparo le nozze e io le secche, le rosse lanterne di festa, le bianche lanterne di lutto, gli incensi e le offerte, monete di carta dorate, il ferro scarlante, i bonzi che cantano, i bonzi che gemono, e tutto quanto il resto secondo buon rito minuzioso infinito.
Now this is about China here now.
O China che or sussulti tra secoli quieta, come dormivi ed agolfi ai dei tuoi 70.000 secoli. Tutto andava secondo l'antichissima regola del mondo. Poi
And then Turandot was born and everything went to pot.
E sono anni che le nostre feste si riducono a gioie come queste. E bastutte di torre indovinelli e giù teste, l'anno del furon sei, ma del cane furono otto, e l'anno in corso il terribile, l'anno della tigre, siamo tu, al tredicesimo, con quello che va pronto, e lavoro,
Oh, what a work we have to do. Oh, it's so terrible.
lavoro che noia, a che siamo malridotti, i ministri siamo del boia,
We're ministers of the executioners.
ministri del boia.
The boy is the executioner. And they feel really hard done by. But
Una casa nell'ona,
he has a house in Onan.
con il suo laghetto blu. Tutto cinto di bambù. E sto qui a dissiparmi la mia vita e stirarmi il cervello sui libri sacri.
And I waste my time with the sacred books.
Sui libri sacri, sui libri sacri.
And if only I could go back to the country.
E potrei tornar laggiù, presso il mio laghetto blu. Tornar laggiù, tutto cinto di presso che lasciai ombra verde. Potrei tornar laggiù, presso il mio laghetto blu. Tutto cinto di bambù. E stiam qui a stirarci il cervello sui libri sacri.
Last time.
E potrei tornare a Zion e godermi il lago blu. E potrei tornare a Chiù a godermi il lago blu. Zion, Chiù, Onan. E potrei
Your own barbershop trio, yeah? Cool.
Wasn't that wonderful? Tony, thank you. Thank you also to Michael Sikic, and indeed to our Ping Pang and Pong, Alistair Shawn and Joseph. Special mention to him. I do hope you didn't have any more haircutting to do in Seville this evening, but there we are. That is all we have time for this insight this evening into Turandot, which has been supported by Rolex. My thanks to all of our guests this evening. My thanks also to our studio audience here in the Claw Studio, and to you for watching at home. Don't forget the date. The 10th of March is when the show begins here at the Royal Opera House. You can also see it on cinemas on the 22nd of March, and there is an encore performance of that televisation on the 26th of March. Do enjoy the show. We've heard a lot about it and it sounds absolutely wonderful. From here in the Claw Studio in London, from all of us, good night.